Hello, and welcome back to the Fayetteville Church of Christ, the second and third grade Bible class. Today we're going to talk about some of Jesus' followers and who they were. And we're going to then next week start several lessons that have to do with a sermon that Jesus preached. And we're going to learn what he taught us to do in his Sermon on the Mount. So that's coming up next week. But today we're going to talk about the apostles. But first, let's review our books of the New Testament. Can you tell me what the four gospel books are? Can you tell me? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Good. And what is the book of Acts? Do you remember what kind of book Acts is? It stands by itself. It's a historical book, a book of the history of the church. Very good. And then after that, we have letters from Paul, letters from others, and then we have a book of prophecy that John wrote. Okay? So let's go ahead and sing the books of the New Testament to begin with. You ready? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Acts and the letter to the Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Galatians and Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, 1st and 2nd Timothy, Titus and Philemon, Hebrews, James, 1st and 2nd Peter, 1st and 2nd and 3rd John, Jude, and what? Revelation. Very good. So, what's the New Testament book of prophecy? What is that book? Good. It's the book of Revelation. Very good. Now, we've been singing a song every week so we can learn the names of the 12 apostles who we're going to talk about today. So, get your page out if you this came from the first lesson on the book of Jesus' life. It's in the activity sheet if you want to find it, but find the page that has the song, and we're going to sing it together. Jesus called them one by one, Peter, Andrew, James, and John. Next came Philip, Thomas too, Matthew, and Bartholomew. Yes, Jesus called them. Yes, Jesus called them. Yes, Jesus called them, and they all followed him. James, the one they called the less, Simon, also Thaddeus, 12 apostles Judas made, Jesus was by him betrayed. Yes, Jesus called them. Yes, Jesus called them. Yes, Jesus called them, and they all followed him. The next apostle is Thomas. And there's a few things that we know about Thomas. It's kind of interesting in the book of John, what we read about him. But Thomas, I am called, also known as Doubting Thomas. I am also called the twin. The Bible calls him Didymus, which means twin. So we think he might have had a twin brother, but we don't know anything about his twin brother or even if he was a believer or not. So you could put, I am called the twin, or I'm called doubting. And really, I don't like the word doubting for him, because when he asked Jesus to see the scars in his hand and on his side, he was wanting evidence. And it's not wrong to ask for evidence of facts, is it? So Thomas kind of gets a bad rap when we call him doubting. But you can write, I am called the twin, or I am called doubting, either one. The next person is James. There's another James. I am called the son of Alphaeus. Okay, James, the son of Alphaeus. I'm also called James the Less. And a lot of Bible scholars think he was called James the Less because he was short. Not that he was less valuable than anybody of the other apostles. He was just short, James the Little, or James the short one. That's what he was called. So we'll put James, I am called the Less, and I am the son of Alphaeus. Okay? Alphaeus. You might want to pause it to get the spelling of that. The next apostle, Simon. Okay? This is the one I was telling you about, Simon the Zealot. He fought against the Romans, and it was like a terrorist group. They were very harsh. They hated the Romans because the Romans were oppressing them. And so he fought against them. Well, remember, Matthew, the tax collector, worked for the Romans. So how do you think Simon and Matthew got along? Well, before they found Jesus, probably not at all. Simon would have killed him if he had met him. But because they loved Jesus and they were following Jesus, they became apostles together. Okay? So we want to put Simon, I am called the Zealot. Zealot. That word comes from zealous or zeal. I was zealous for killing the Romans. Okay, the next one is Thaddeus, and I've never known anybody named Thaddeus. You might have. I am also called Jude. Okay, he had two names. A lot of times these names are a Roman name and a Greek name. I don't know which would be here, or a Hebrew name. So that would be the difference. Sometimes they're different in the different languages. So Thaddeus, I am also called Jude. And what does Jude remind you of? Is there a book in the New Testament called Jude? He wrote the book of Jude. All right. And the last one on our list is not a hero, is he? His name is Judas Iscariot. Okay? And what was he known for? He was the treasurer. What does a treasurer do? A treasurer keeps the money. Okay? They had to have money to eat. They had to have money sometimes to buy things. And so he was the treasurer of the apostles. He kept their money bag. But we learn from some things that Jesus said that Judas took money out of the bag. He was stealing money from the bag. So he wasn't a very good treasurer. He also betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. He must have liked money a lot. But he betrayed Jesus. He showed the Romans where Jesus was in the garden so that they could crucify him. And we do know that, so we want to say, Judas Iscariot, I was the treasurer. Okay, I was the treasurer. And I betrayed. It's a very sad word, to betray somebody, is to tell on them, to get them in trouble, is what a betrayal is. I betrayed Jesus for how many? 30 pieces of silver. Okay, and that was even one of the prophecies in the Old Testament, that he would do that. And then, remember, after it was found out, he was, I think the Bible says he was sad when he realized that they were going to kill Jesus, and he went and killed himself because he was upset about it. Not a good thing to do. So there were only 11 apostles then, but they picked another one, and Matthias was his name, and Matthias was the one who took his place. He was chosen in the book of Acts. Acts chapter 1 is where we learn about Matthias, and he took the place of Judas. So there were again 12 apostles. Okay, get your page out that looks like this. It says Disciples of Jesus Facts. And let's just see if you can remember without looking at your paper that we just did. And let's just see if we can remember who were the two sets of brothers. You remember? Peter and Andrew. And who are the other two sets of brothers? You remember? James and John. Okay, so we want to put Peter and Andrew, James and John. All right. And who were the four fishermen? Well, that was the same guys, weren't they? The four fishermen, Peter, Andrew, James, and John. They worked together. And then who was the tax collector? Who was the tax collector? What was his name? Matthew. Okay, and in some books he's called Levi. I think Mark calls him Levi. Who denied Jesus? Now this one we didn't talk about. But there was one apostle when Jesus was being crucified that people came up and said, aren't you with Jesus? Aren't you one of his friends? And this apostle said, I don't even know him. No, I've never known him before. Do you remember who that was? Or have you ever heard that lesson? His name was Peter. What? Peter was the first gospel preacher. But before he did that, he denied Jesus 3 times. Who did Jesus see by the fig tree? Do you remember who we talked about? Was it Nathaniel? Nathaniel that he saw by the fig tree? And then who betrayed Jesus? Who betrayed Jesus? It was Judas, wasn't it? Okay. Now, you want to be sure and cut your picture out. That I don't think I printed one out for the your photo album, so you can finish up your photo album. Put your last picture that Jesus chooses 12 disciples, and that covers the early years of Jesus' life. So you should have a whole photo album full of pictures about Jesus and his life. Now, another activity that you can work on is this, and it's if you can find this page in the activities, and you'll find pages after it, and it's got directions in there for what to do. But what you want to do is get you a file folder, just a plain old file folder, and you want to paste this on the front, because we're going to talk about we're going to open it up and we're going to see all the apostles. And what you want to do it this way, is take each apostle and write under here what you know about them. Okay, what you can know about them. Now, the apostles of Jesus, apostle means one sent, disciple means follower, remember? Now, these are the 12 here, but remember Judas had to be replaced, and Matthias replaced him, so you would probably write, because we don't know much about Matthias, you could write he replaced Judas. And then there's another apostle we did not talk about. His name was Paul. And Paul, Jesus came to him on the road to Damascus, and Paul saw Jesus, and he became basically the 13th apostle. Okay, so you can make your little folder book and work on that, and see how much you can know about each of the apostles. You might not know much about some of them, but some of them we know a great deal. Now, finally, are you a disciple? We're not apostles because Jesus hasn't chosen us particularly, but he has asked us to follow him. And to follow him, we are a disciple. So find this page. It says, are you a disciple? And let's talk about what it means to be a disciple. Circle the words that describe how you would act if you were a disciple. Okay? You might want to color these words. There's a lot of ones that you can color or shade in. Would you be faithful if you were a disciple? And that means not wavering. You would stay with him. Yes, we would be faithful, wouldn't we? Would we be understanding of our teacher? Yes. Would we be obedient to be a disciple? Yes. Would we be a whiner? Jesus, I don't want to go there today. Can you imagine any of the disciples saying that? No, we don't want to do that today. They did complain about some things, we'll see, but that wouldn't be a good disciple, would it? If I were a disciple, I should not be a whiner. Am I going to be teachable? Yes, teachable. Okay, I want the person that I'm following, Jesus, to teach me. What about willful? And that means I want my will, not his will. Is that going to make a good disciple? It's not, is it? Because then I'm not following him, I'm following me. I need to not be willful. I need to go and do what he wants. Joyful? Would a disciple be joyful? What about selfish? Do you think any of the apostles or the disciples were selfish? Well, a couple of them did kind of want to be first in the kingdom, they said. So in some ways, that was a little bit selfish. But we should not be selfish if we are a disciple. What about kind? We would be kind, wouldn't we? Would we be compassionate if you were a disciple? That means feeling others' hurt and pain? Yes, we would. What about being stubborn? And that's really the same thing as willful. I'm not going to do that just because you say I have to do it. That's being very stubborn. What about prayerful? Do we want to pray? Do we want to think about the things that Jesus asked us to do and try to do them? Yes. Loving? We want to be loving, don't we? Wise? Of course. A good disciple is going to be wise, following his teacher, Jesus. What about jealous? Am I going to be jealous of... Do you think some of the apostles were jealous of the other apostles? Though they might have been. Sometimes in the church, we get jealous of others. Well, she can do so much more than I can. Yes, but what can you do? We should not be jealous of one another. We should love one another and do the things that Jesus asked us to do and use the talents that he's given us and not worry about what other people are doing or not doing. Okay, that concludes our lessons on Jesus' early life. And next week, we're going to start several lessons, and we're going to learn the Sermon on the Mount. We're going to learn what Jesus talks about in his first written sermon, or the first sermon that they wrote down. It's got so many good things in it. And we're going to be memorizing the Beatitudes in Matthew chapter 5. So you might want to look at those if you want to. But we're going to start next week a new section of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, and we'll be learning the Beatitudes in the next few weeks. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next week.